It's Christina at the Sisyphean Journal, and I'm going to give you a look at how interesting and confusing it can be every year when I research an abortion death. Now, today I was looking at the death of Delores Smith. Now, she was one of two teens that was fatally injured within an hour of each other on June 2nd, 1979, at National Abortion Federation member Atlanta Women's Pavilion in Georgia. And this was just really a military grade cock up. Let's use that euphemism. 19-year-old Angela had stopped breathing in the recovery room, so the doctor and the nurse who were working on Delores went to attempt to revive Angela and just left the anesthesia drip running on Delores. After they resuscitated Angela and loaded her into the ambulance, they returned their attention to Delores and discovered that she'd stopped breathing. And since the doctor had gone to the hospital with Angela, the staff were refusing to release Delores to the ambulance crew until the doctor had returned to discharge her, which resulted in a 30-minute delay. Angela lingered in a coma for a week before dying on June 11th, and poor little Delores never regained consciousness, was admitted to a nursing home where she died October 24th. Now, first, let's just look at the confusion. The original stories I had was that Delores had died just after her 15th birthday. So she was 14, and everything I saw said she was 14 when the abortion happened. Well, I went to look it up, and let's see, here's the Georgia Death Index. Okay, says that Delores Jean Smith, was a 14-year-old black female who died October 24th, 1979 in Hart, Georgia. Right place, age 14. Huh. Okay. So let's see what else we can find. Okay, Social Security Death Index. Here, death October 1979, lived in Georgia. Born 14 December 1963, well, that would have made her, and I double-checked on the age calculator, 15 years old when the abortion was performed and 15 when she died. So was Delores 14 or 15? I don't even know. So I was hoping to get some clarification by looking in newspaper coverage. And I had trouble finding enough stuff with Delores' name on, so I looked for Atlanta Women's Pavilion, and I brought this up. And this was interesting. Other doctors in Florida? Okay. Something was weird happening in Florida. One of the neighbor doctors said he was told the Atlanta anesthesiologist had prepared for the work by watching one day of abortions as at Atlanta Women's Pavilion. The anesthesiologist insisted his training was more than that. I'm an anesthesiologist. The most important part of any abortion is the anesthesia, putting in the block, of which I've done. Weeks later, when problems with administering anesthesia caused injuries to two young patients at the Atlanta Women's Pavilion, other doctors would echo this statement that this is the most dangerous part of the procedure. Huh. And then it gets weird. The anesthesiologist said there was some concern at the Florida clinic when his first abortions were completed, and he sent specimens off to a laboratory for testing because this was a new clinic to test everything out. He continued, the specimens all came back labeled products of conception. There was a kind of panic that none of the abortions had worked. In reality, they had worked. People in the clinic just didn't know how to read the damn pathology slips. Okay, so that's weird. And this was under doctors, continued from page 1C. So I popped back to page 1C, found abortion safer for mother than birth. Huh. Wait a minute. What does this have to do with Florida? It says, oh, abortion's ever so safe. In reaction to those, said the issue of the safety of abortion procedures has been highlighted by recent incidents at an Atlanta abortion clinic that left one young woman dead and another critically injured. That being Angela, who died, and um, Delores, who was still in a coma at this point. The reaction to these incidents at the Atlanta Women's Pavilion, a Georgia House subcommittee is scheduled to tour Atlanta abortion clinics this month. Also, State Department of Human Resources will hold a hearing. Several members of the medical community are saying that the Atlanta incidents are not representative of what they called a statistically safe abortion record in Georgia. If a doctor did not mention the cause of death is related to abortion, then it is possible we would fail to detect it. However, we do receive reports from physicians or county medical examinators, so we do not have to rely solely on death certificates for finding abortion-related deaths, said Dr. Richard Selleck of the CDC's Abortion Surveillance Unit. So, it's really interesting that the CDC is trying to say that, yeah, the abortion might not be on the death certificate, but other people might tell us about that. But it's on national scale, Georgia. I'm like, wait a minute. What does this have to do with Florida? What is going on here? Oh, see clinic. See clinic, page 7C. Well, I was on page 7C. Ah, let's scroll down. Clinic. And that's where they say 2 deaths for every 100,000 abortions compared to 3 deaths for every 100,000 tonsillectomies. So the risk of abortion greatly increases when a patient receives general anesthetic, which is not required but is administered at the woman's request in most cases. Now, they don't do them under general anesthesia that often anymore. So according to CDC, complications due to receiving general anesthetic during an abortion in Georgia amount to 1 death in every 50,000. Well, wait a minute. It's saying 1 death in every 50,000 compared to 2 deaths for every 100,000, but general anesthesia is required for most abortions. Okay, but that's general anesthetic during abortion in Georgia. 1 death every 50,000. So that's just showing you how freaky weird this is. And let's just look while I'm at it. He said nationally the chance is 1 out of every 50,000 that a patient will have reactions such as cardiac arrest due to illegal abortion in the first trimester. Cardiac arrest seems like a pretty serious risk. The study was conducted by the CDC's Joint Program for the Study of Abortions 1971 to 1975. And oh my gosh, they acted as if that was absolutely beyond a doubt the definitive proof that abortion is ever so safe. And one of the biggest clinics they got their information from was the Center for Reproductive and Sexual Health in New York, that managed to later chart a dead patient as pink, responsive, and alert. So I have some questions about the accuracy of the data collected by the Joint Program for the Studies of Abortion. So they went ahead and did some comparisons. But I just find this all, where are we, 37? Let me turn off my alarm there. So we're looking, here's the one about doctors. So it was 2 articles together. We have Abortion Safer for Mother Than Birth, which talks about deaths, and there were actually 3 deaths in the Atlanta area in 1 year. And then abortion job disillusions doctor. This is the first part of that article. The Atlanta physician was, in his own words, gainfully unemployed as he tried to recover from a serious drug addiction problem. But at the same time he was keeping a low profile in his home area, he was able to get employment in Florida doing abortions. So, in the case of the unemployed Atlanta physician, the abortion scene still includes some legacy of the days when abortions were illegal and likely to attract physicians of questionable background. No kidding. Astonish me, please. So, the young physician whose medical specialty is anesthesiology described how he and another doctor, also in considerable trouble, had been recruited by the Florida abortion clinic, which has since closed. I would love to know which clinic that was. And I might contact Paul Lieberman at the Atlanta Journal-Constitution if he's still there after all these years. Likely not. So, the other physician facing criminal charges for improperly writing drug prescriptions got the first call. The way it was presented, they were a California group and they wanted eventually to open a clinic in Atlanta. That's why they were interested, the anesthesiologist said. The two of us went down there and looked over the clinic. It seemed like a good thing. The second doctor, preoccupied with the criminal case in Georgia, did not go back to Florida to do the work, but the anesthesiologist did. I worked a total of 4 days down there myself, then I realized it wasn't all it was cracked up to be. He said, I didn't have a backup physician. I was told that a couple of doctors had agreed to be the backups. In fact, one of them was opposed to the clinic. Other doctors in the Florida city later charged that there were some complications at the clinic, including some unsuccessful abortions. That's when they say one of the neighborhood doctors said he was told by the Atlanta anesthesiologist that he had prepared for the work by watching 1 day of abortions at the Atlanta Women's Pavilion. So I just find it really interesting that we have a case of 3 women, well, actually 2 teenage girls and a woman, dying in a cluster in Atlanta. And the results we get are one article assuring us that the abortions are ever so safe, and another one talking about how safe and legal abortion is attracting some serious quacks. This is the world I live in, folks. Isn't it jolly?